Have you ever been going through something really challenging and then your friends and family actually make things worse by things they do and say? Well, I know I have, and I know I have made mistakes myself. Well, that's because we're not aware of the circle of grief. And I am going to explain that to you in today's video. Hi, I'm Gina. Welcome to Hope and Cope, where we talk about how to have our best life in spite of the painful and sometimes even tragic situations in our lives. As far as I know, the circle of grief was created by a lady named Heather LcLeod, and I will put a link in the description box to her blog about the circle of grief. I'm going to explain the original circle of grief, and then I'm going to show you how I've modified it for other life situations like an addiction or a betrayal, a divorce, different things like that. The original circle of grief is specifically designed for the families of a loved one that has a terminal illness, and so the person at the center is the sick person, and then the circle and right outside that is the immediate family, and then outside that is the closest friends and family, and then outside that is people, acquaintances, looker-ons, people that know you but aren't as close to you. And the way it works is everyone, depending on which circle you find yourself in, you are ministering inward to the circles that are closer in to the center. So if you are a church friend of someone that's passing away, you are always looking to comfort inward, not to go to someone closer to that tragedy and ask them or put on them to then comfort you. The analogy would maybe be, the wife of someone that's dying, and you're a friend, and you're going to go to that wife and you're going to talk about how tragic it is and how much it affects you, and you're going to cry on their shoulder. This circle of grief explains that you're going to go to someone either in your circle or further outside the circle to talk about how the loss is affecting you. It doesn't diminish that a loss affects every part of the circle or every layer of the circle. It just talks about how we comfort inward and we go to our circle or outer circles to be comforted. There's also a second layer to the circle of grief, and it's a scale of 1 to 10. So you look for the people, if you are with someone that's on a circle closer to the center than you, either the person affected or the immediate family members, the closest friends, then you are going to look for where they are grief-wise on a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being the worst, 1 being the least affected. So the thinking with this concept is that you're always going to show a little more strength than the person you're with. So you're going to be the person that they can rely on. You're going to be the person that they can cry on their shoulder. If you're matching their level of grief, or you're expressing a stronger grief, then that person's not going to feel like they can rely on you for comfort. So we're going to be stronger for them, even if in that moment we don't feel stronger. Maybe we are having a bad day as well and we're really full of grief. If that person is in a circle closer to the center than you, you are always obliged, by this circle of grief mentality, you are always obliged to be stronger for the person that is closer to the center. So we're going to take this circle of grief model and we're going to apply it to people that have an ongoing tragedy in their life. For example, I already said a person with an addiction. I'm just going to keep it really simple. We're going to talk about my specific situation where I was the wife of a person with addiction. So in my scenario, we can put the person with the addiction at the center. That's okay. But I'm going to say for this scenario, we're going to bounce back and forth and say that myself and my children were at the center of the circle, and that Rob might have been the cause of us being in the center of the circle, but we're at the center of the circle. And then outside that would be Rob's immediate family and our closest friends and my immediate family. And then outside that would have been our church family, and except for the people that maybe were like close as a brother, there's 2 or 3 people in the church that are like that. They would maybe be in that second circle. And then outside that are kind of the onlookers. They're the people that they may care. They know who you are. They don't want to see this terrible thing happening. They're sorry to hear it, but they're not immediately or in any way directly affected by the situation. So for me, my daughters were in the center of the circle more than me. I put them in the center, and then I was on an outer circle for that. But I understand that for most everybody else besides me, my girls and me would have been in the center of the circle. So there's not just one person in the center where there is on the terminally ill circle of grief. So there's this immediate family in the center of the circle. And so everyone else needs to be strong for that core in the center and be able to minister inward to them and not expect the wife and the children of that circle to be ministering outwardly. So it doesn't really mean that there wasn't a time that I could have ministered to my husband's mother, but it does just mean that it would have been better for her to maybe talk to her own daughter, my husband's sister, or maybe her cousin, her dear neighbor, other people for her to turn to about the grief, rather than coming to that inner circle and looking to myself or Julie or Shannon or Tiffany for comfort. And so this just goes outward and continues. So I know there were people that were affected and were hurt, deeply hurt by my husband's addiction. They had him quite on a pedestal. A lot of people did. And he seemed above this possibility because he was a leader in our church, and he was such a strong person and had endured for so many years this tragic chronic pain that he had from an accident back in 1992. And it just seemed like, even though he had a struggle in his life, that this was never going to be something he was going to fall victim to. And so a lot of people, it caught us all on the blind side. And it hurt a lot of people, devastated a lot of people. But they needed to take their grief and talk to someone else in their circle, like if it was Rob's closest friends, for them to talk to each other. But it would not have been ideal for them to talk to me or my girls. But the truth is, there were those conversations between all the circles, and we all just dealt with it in a very muddy kind of way. We didn't know about these circles of grief. And I do think that a lot of people were just trying to express their condolences, basically, to say how sorry they were that this was happening and how much they couldn't believe that this could happen. And then it got really ugly, and it lasted for a decade. And so it just went on and on and on, and the pain and the grief was just compounded. So this is not going to be like, don't look at this like a bullseye, like everything is just black and white and stark and easy to tell where the lines are. They are easily blurred. And people that are grief-stricken will sometimes overspill into areas where maybe they should have gone to somebody else. But we all handle grief differently. So this is just a model. This is just a model. If you are a dear friend of someone who is the spouse or the child or the mother, the sibling to someone in an addiction or some other tragic life choice, then it's helpful for you to comfort in and be strong for those people. Don't be lower on the emotional scale than they are, or don't be higher on the emotional scale than they are. And you're going to try to be strong for them, and of course show sympathy. You're not, if they're a 5 or 6 or 7, you're not going to want to necessarily be a 1 and seem impervious and seem unaffected by their grief. But you're going to want to be strong for them, be there so they can be comforted by you, be there so they can cry on your shoulder, so they can mull over their sorrow and their grief with you. You're not going to want, ideally, you're not going to want to just get in the muck and call names and how dare he, and he deserves this and he deserves that, and I'm so angry and I hope this happens to him. And that's not helpful to that person in grief. It's better that you just try to be sympathetic and understanding, showing a lot of compassion and a lot of just letting them air their feelings. Try to give hope where you can. Thank you for your time today. I hope this was helpful. I have another video for you at the end. I also have a Bible verse and a Christian song in the description box below. If this was helpful, please hit the thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. And I put out content on Sundays, and I've got a Bible study going out on Wednesdays nowadays. So check that out, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.